Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host Greg Thompson along with my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, how we doing?
I'm pumped up, man. The Bills are back.
Let's go.
We're back. Let's go. Let's talk about it. Let's get right back into this. Got over that first week one. We got a little juice back. Still some problems to go over here with this team, but I'm feeling pretty good, man, going into week 3.
Yeah, a little bit. It's a good feeling, and I'm excited. We got a fun guest coming on here in a little bit. A lot of good stuff going on, but it is nice to get into a rhythm. It feels a little more regular. It was good to be in that routine and rhythm as you get into things, and I am now getting into rhythm with my crazy amount of fantasy teams, and then I'm going into prep for the show, watching the games. Luckily, it was fun. I got to I watched the Thursday night game last week, so I got to rewatch it when
we're gonna get to do that again. This week, too.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. We'll get Houston this week and then get to watch them again going into the next week. So tonight's show obviously brought to you by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Make sure you download the app, use promo code COVER1, get yourself $10 free. Our friends at Uncle Jumbos, all kinds of good stuff over here. Where can I point to? There we go.
There you go. The mirror always messes me up, too.
It always messes it up. And again, tonight's show is brought to you by our friends over at TeeShirt University. Dave and the guys over there are awesome. We had mentioned it a little while ago that there was something special coming up here, and they have it ready in the store over at Walden Galleria, online at TeeShirt University. You can find it down in the app. They have an exclusive new design from 26 shirts. You can get yourself Mafia ready with the guys over there. Order it, get it while it lasts. Those things sell out real quick, but you'll find that in the show description down below here or wherever you're listening to this. You can find it there, but make sure you're checking out our friends at TeeShirt University. All kinds of awesome stuff going on. And I actually dig this one as well. I might just pop up there and get myself one as we get going.
There's not a shirt that says anything Bills related that I feel like you don't own.
Yeah, I had that discussion with Dell earlier. There's a lot.
The discussion should be with your wife, not with Dell.
Yeah, no, we should not have that discussion going. That's not necessary. There's a lot. There's a lot of them over there, but it's fun to get ready for Washington week, and
I'm gonna have a hard time not saying Redskins. You know, it's tough on me.
The whole WTF messes me up too.
I know, me too. Yeah,
going through, it's different to get used to, and it's fun when you have these where you don't play them often. We only play Washington once every 4 years. It's different to go through there. It's fun to be able to get ready for them, and it's some players that we don't think about all the time. So we'll get into that a little bit more in the breakdown later. But there wasn't a ton of news for this week. There's a couple different things going on. One thing we wanted to touch on was maybe the injury report. We saw mostly things that we're making up for covering for last week coming out of the game. So obviously, we knew Gabe Davis was already a little bit gimpy. You had the veteran rest days there. Some of the stuff from the game, Tremaine Edmonds with cramps and Levi Wallace with the knee, they both were full participants today. We saw Efe Obada was probably kind of a precautionary scratch, but anytime you get a late week,
probably could have played
injury there. Yeah, we just didn't need it when you had 8 other guys healthy. Obviously Micah Hyde, I don't think there's anything too concerning there. The two that were interesting to me are Dane Jackson. We hadn't seen that before, so I'm assuming that knee came out of the game where he was filling in for Levi Wallace. And anytime you have 2 guys at the same position there, that's at least raises an eyebrow. And Star Lotulelei, not because he's on here, but because it's a new injury. So the last 2 weeks, he was there with a calf injury. He didn't play week 1. He started limited last week, worked his way back in, and then now starts this week with a groin injury and did not participate. That's not a death knell. Last week, Gabe Davis started as a did not participate, worked his way up to limited on Thursday and Friday, was only limited, and then he was active in the game. So it's not necessarily terrible, but what are your thoughts now seeing Star again and a new injury?
Yeah, so with Dane, I'm not concerned because he's already limited, and so it is surprising that he's there, but limited is a good sign. I think he works his way up. But yeah, Star, one, he can have my groin. I have no real use for it anymore. But Star is interesting to me because that first week when the Bills were without him, and he was not practicing, I had said, we can get by a week or two without Star because of the depth in the interior. I felt you could get by. This week, I don't know. We'll talk about some of the pieces along Washington's front that I don't think are great matchups for the interior of the Buffalo Bills, and I would love to see Star going up against Brandon Sheriff versus Harrison Phillips and Butler going up against Sheriff. I don't love those matchups. I'd rather have Star in there, especially with the way he played against Miami. So this one's one that I'm monitoring because I do think we might be past that. Well, we can get a week or two without Star. I think a game like this, the Texans game would be one that I would be comfortable with Star sitting out. But in a game like this, I think they're going to try to establish some semblance of a run game. And I think Star is really important to what they're trying to do along the defensive front and stopping the run. So this is one I'm watching pretty closely because, I think if it gets past it, I think he can go one more day not participating, but he's got to be limited to full by Friday here to have a chance at playing. And so this is one I'm going to be refreshing that Bills PR feed tomorrow afternoon to see where he's at.
Yeah, and Sean McDermott takes it seriously. You have to practice in order to play. A lot of coaches are like that. Star looked good. He was a contributor on Sunday. He had 4 pressures. That's not something you see all the time. There was those couple clips where you saw 3 Dolphins blocking him. He helped keep the linebackers clean. That's why they were able to have such good games. He was doing everything that you want him to do. It is such a nice ability to be able to have a guy like that there, and like you talked about, it's not the end of the world if you have to have Harrison Phillips fill in here and there, but it is a downgrade. It is a step down right now, and Harrison just has not gotten to that level of a one tech consistently, and having to rely on that against Brandon Sheriff is not ideal. It's not something that we want to see. So we'll talk about it here when our guest jumps on in a couple of minutes, but I think a piece of that is going to be like you said, that transition during the week, as long as we see him go into it. The fact that you had 2 cornerbacks on here, I have a feeling that's why we saw some of the workouts that we had coming in. So we saw that we had both Demarius Randall, who's a kind of a versatile secondary piece. He was a corner. He played some safety. He kind of plays that movable nickel role, last in Cleveland, but also in LA, in Green Bay as well. Then you saw also Quentin Dunbar, who I am very intrigued with from a talent standpoint. He's had some challenges and some off-field issues, some health issues. When he's on the field with his head on straight, that's a starting caliber good player. That's a guy that really could push for some snaps. He's obviously looking for a roster spot. He's not looking for a practice squad invite. He's looking for a roster spot, and he's probably looking for some commitment of playing time because he knows his only chance to get a deal for next year is to be able to get some snaps. So either of those names intrigue you?
For sure. I think both intrigue me. And I love that they're constantly working guys out. And some of that might not even be necessarily for the injuries that popped up this week, but just in general, you got these free agents out there. You want to get them in your building, get a look at them, get a physical on them, see that, hey, if I have to sign you, let's get you in, because there's still that COVID policy on free agents too. So you wouldn't be able to sign this guy this week and he plays on Sunday. There's going to be a quarantine period for him to come play. So I think this is just good GMing and pro personnel stuff by Brandon Beane and company to get these guys in here with consistency and looking at them. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and it's I think you talked about whether it's the long-term planning here for an injury that pops up, or even as they get into some other things. I know the questions came up. We have a lot of guys in this secondary on 1-year prove-it deals, looking to be able to earn a contract themselves. So I know your man Taron Johnson has gotten a lot more positive attention lately. And that's someone that, I got a question this week on Twitter that, hey, if he keeps playing at the level that we saw, especially here this past week against Miami, are we going to be able to afford Taron Johnson? And I always give the same canned answer of, hey, it's a great problem to deal with. Some people were also freaking out about the defensive line, and that, hey, what if all these young guys are good all at the same time?
Oh, man. God forbid.
Yeah. I always warn people,
please no.
The position doesn't matter if all of your draft picks hit and are great all at the same time. It's an awesome problem to deal with.
comp pick city.
And it's expensive to be able to do it. You know, that famous draft class the Saints put together, they're just going through signing all those guys now, and it's really hard. Like, if you hit on all your picks, that's great. That's not a problem.
Give me those problems.
Yeah, believe me. Let me deal with the fact, oh my gosh, I don't know how we're going to sign
too many good
all
players.
the talented guys that we have. But specifically for Taron Johnson, I had brought up a couple different comparisons. You know, obviously looking at guys like Chris Harris, who was a guy that you and I were kind of interested in, and when we weren't sure if we were going to be able to bring everybody back in the offseason, and he ended up signing with LA, and it was a 2-year, $20.5 million deal at about $10 million. You know, at the time, and he's still playing well now, he's a little bit older, but he's had seasons where he's arguably the best nickel cornerback in the NFL. I know that Taron's had flashes there. He's had plenty of big plays. I don't know that he's consistently performed at that level, but that gives him a ceiling of what he wants to shoot for. You know, there's certainly times where he's played more at a Levi Wallace level. For, you know, probably a little bit more talented, a little bit more consistent. But Levi was a starting caliber corner. He signed 1 year, $1 million. So right now, if I had to guess, I think that Taron Johnson's probably like a, you know, lowest would be 2 years and $6 to $8 million, around $3 or $4 million a year, and at the higher end, probably 3 years and $18 million, like a $6 million a year player. I'd be surprised. He would have to go lights out the rest of the year to push for that kind of Chris Harris money, but I don't think it's crazy that he could be around $6 million a year, and I think that his performance would more so earn a couple extra years rather than a ton of extra money. But, you know, if we re-signed a guy like that for a 3-year deal, I'd be really excited.
Yeah, I think there's always bad GMs out there that will overpay somebody, so there's a chance that money's out there somewhere. It's not
Especially
in Buffalo.
Going to playoff run.
Sure, they go on a playoff run. He makes another big play. Those big plays stand out to guys, and they bite on that stuff all the time. I do think he's more in that 3 to 4 a year range, and I'd be happy to bring him back at that range. And I do think this is a guy that's a priority for the Bills. I know they're not. I always tweet out, extend Taron Johnson. They're not going to do that during the season. That's just not Brandon Beane's mode of operation. So I know that's not the case. I just tweeted out as a way to let people know that I want him to stay here. And so next year, when it comes to re-signing him, this is a guy that maybe is not a priority like Matt Milano was this last preseason.
Yeah,
but,
I'd say a half notch below there.
Yeah, but he's up there for me. And I think this is something you and I have talked about a couple times now with how they're building this team and who they're choosing to pay. I think there might not be a better example of the process than Taron Johnson. Mid-round pick, small school guy, measurables aren't there. When he got drafted, I'm like, you know, who's this guy with these short little arms? There's no way these measurables are going to work in the NFL. And he's just a football player. He's a heady football player. He's had adversity, just something Sean McDermott discusses all the time about his team, about individuals. Leslie Frazier talked about it just this week. He said, you know, even they in the building were wondering if he was going to catch on the way that they projected him to over the last couple of years. And then now he's saying this guy's basically a coach on the field for them. So that whole this guy really has embodied the process. He lost his job, and then once he got it back, he never gave it up again. I think Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott really want to reward players like that. That sets an example in the locker room that if you do everything the right way, and even when you have adversity, if you come back and you keep your head down and you do things the right way and follow the process, we're going to reward that internally. So I think this is a priority for them, probably more so. I know fans are into it now because the recency bias, he's played really well the last couple of weeks. But I think even before this, they talk about how hard this guy works. Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde were just talking about. He's a dog. He's one of the hardest working guys. This has been a priority for them, I think, before this recent spike in his production.
Yeah, and you know, obviously the teams put themselves in a good position. There's not a ton of critical pieces coming up on contracts this year. It's a lot of rotational guys. It's Jerry Hughes and Mario Addison. It's Emmanuel Sanders. It's Levi Wallace and Taron Johnson, Isaiah
Probably
McKenzie.
Get Diggs extended and worked out, get some money freed up there.
But out of those names I read it off, Taron Johnson's probably the top of the list. He's probably the number one guy that's out there. So those are all the things going on this week. You know, obviously not a ton of news over there. He who shall not be named got brought back to the practice squad. There wasn't a whole lot of other things going on. So,
well, real quick on that before we jump into our guest. he who should not be named, there's a reaction of like, well, we should have brought in Dunbar. We should have brought in these guys. And to your point, though, like some of that, what goes on behind the scenes is Sean McDermott has and Brandon Beane have great respect for players. They're not going to bring a Quentin Dunbar in and sit him on the practice squad. If there's not a role for him to play in this team, a Bobby Hart, you can put at the bottom of your practice squad and not feel bad about it. You know what I mean? So some of that is what goes on in the background.
He can play a role in practice.
Yes. And that's all we want to see.
So it's a good confidence builder for the young defensive ends. That's great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Without further ado, as we dive into our actual preview of this week's game, we have our man from the Believe Network's Burgundy Network, Josh Taylor. Josh, how we doing, man?
I'm doing good. Appreciate y'all having me on. What's going on, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. I know you're a busy man tonight, already fitting in a couple different shows. So we'll dive right into it, man. I know I think there was some genuine excitement coming into the year for Washington. A lot of weapons, a lot of exciting pieces, some of the young guys playing well. Then obviously, we know the roller coaster of Fitzmagic and Fitztragic, and having the injury was a little bit scary, but it had to be a little reassuring to see Heineke on Thursday night. I certainly bid a whole bunch of money at him in my Superflex league, so I was very excited to see him play pretty well. And that ridiculous touchdown to Ricky Seals-Jones. How is it going 2 weeks in, compared to the initial expectations to where it is now? How's the fan base and where's the temperature?
Well, first off, I love the Woody Page vibes with the cancel Dan Snyder behind you. Absolutely agree with you. Love Tanya, but Dan's got to go. But it's really weird to say this as a fan of a team that just lost their quarterback, one of the most durable quarterbacks in NFL history, going down the first game in Washington. But we feel great over here. It's weird because at the game, Fitzpatrick goes down and then Heineke comes out and the fan base just explodes. This fan base loves Taylor Heineke, and there's something about him. I don't know what it is, and no one can describe what it is about him, but he's just special. I don't want to say kid, but we're the same age, but he's just a special guy. There's just something about him that you want to get behind, and it just has uplifted this fan base, and we feel so good about this team. Now, our defense, we'll talk about, we've got us kind of on edge, but the offense, it's a fresh feeling. We've never felt like our offense can move the ball and actually score points like we have so far this season, which is new to us.
So I'll dive right in and I'll talk about kind of the matchup of Washington's offense against the Bills' defense. And I know as you're looking at, we'll start with it up front. Brandon Scherff is, for my money, right there for the best guard in the NFL. I think he's right there, Quentin Nelson. Quentin Nelson gets talked about a lot. Brandon Scherff's done everything that Nelson's done, just longer, and is right there. And I know the Bills have seen some of the challenges of when you have a lesser guy there, where the younger guy, Deion Dawkins, started really good as a rookie, then didn't have anybody next to him later on. I think you're seeing the best play out of Samuel Cosmi because of having someone like Scherff next to him. Some people know the name of Charles Leno coming over for Chicago, but I don't think a lot of people know Schweitzer and Roulier. How is the offensive line coming together? There's a lot of excitement about the weapons. People know the names in fantasy we'll get to in a minute. How is that line coming together so far?
There's a lot of questions about the line going into it. Obviously, Morgan Moses leaves the team. He was like our Charles Leno, like you said, left Chicago. Big loss for them as their offensive line looks like. Justin Fields is going to learn that Sunday, but he's been great. And then you have at the left guard spot, like I said, Schweitzer, but then getting Eric Flowers back, who was the laughing stock for Washington fans for a long time when he was in New York. And then he comes here and you're like, oh man, this is a different Eric Flowers. This is the guy in college that we saw. So he's been phenomenal. And then Chase Roulier, a 6th-round gem, who is now our long-term guy. He just got paid this offseason. He's our guy at center for the foreseeable future. And then, like you said, Sam Cosmi, one of the more athletic tackles in draft history, coming out of Texas. Has been a great pickup for us. He struggled a little bit in the pass protection. He's been great in the run. Our run game behind him is phenomenal. Antonio Gibson loves going to that side. If you check the next gen stat routes and him running the ball, he's going towards Sam Cosmi for a good reason. So, and like I said, with Sheriff, the big thing for him has just been staying healthy. It seems like he's always having this injury every single season that takes him out. But we actually have depth this season, which we've never had before. So just the unit as a whole is phenomenal. But then if someone does go down, we have guys that can play at different spots. Like I said, with Schweitzer and then Sadiq Charles, who we got from LSU. He's come back and he can get many spots in the offensive line too. So I feel really good about the unit that we have now.
So I know it's certainly been the bane of fantasy owners' existence thus far, but it's nice from a real live NFL having the way they're mixing up McKissick and Antonio Gibson. I think, obviously Gibson had a very exciting season last year. The athleticism is obvious for a guy his size, but I actually think McKissick is a really solid talent. Like there's a reason that they keep incorporating him in the game. How is that working out with the way they intended to use it? Do you think that would you like to see them use Gibson more in the passing game, or do you think the split is working well because it's keeping him healthy?
I think it's working great. So if you look last season, J.D. McKissick was second in the league in receptions for running backs behind Alvin Kamara. And it was, Alvin Kamara is going to do what he does, obviously. But for us, it was a different role for him because it was Alex Smith checking it down to him, third and long, checking it down, and just hoping something comes out of it. But as you saw against the Giants, we're using him in more of a role of where he's going to do like wheel routes to the outside. That one catch on the sideline was huge for us right before the Ricky Seals-Jones touchdown. Stuff like that, just letting him, run these routes, kind of like how Antonio Gibson did in college at Memphis, and just being more of a weapon, not just in the running game, but also in the receiving game as well. And I think we're going to mix in some more Antonio Gibson in the passing game too. But getting that turf toe near the end of the season last year, that's something that lingers for a while. So I wanted to see more carries with him. And then don't forget Jared Patterson. They really like him.
Yeah.
The undrafted free
agent. Those fans very familiar.
Yeah, love him. I love his game. One of his buddies is like in our like Washington content community. So like we've talked to him pretty often. He's a local guy here. But he's just a great runner. So like I think slowly but surely you're going to see more Jarrett Patterson and then also JD running the ball too.
So, and the final thing on the offensive side of the ball, I think Washington has done as good a job as anyone at building the wide receiver core like a basketball team. And I love the way that, like, when you use that analogy and you see, okay, I know what role De'Ami Brown plays. I know what role Adam Humphrey plays. I know what role Logan Thomas plays. And then you have a centerpiece and a go-to guy in Terry McLaurin. But the man to my right here is an enormous Terry McLaurin fan. He was
I lost after.
Heartbroken Terry. When the Bills didn't draft him in 19. And just the way that they've built that entire, arsenal of passing options was why people were excited to see Fitz have a full season there, and why I think Taylor Heineke can do some damage here. Is it coming together? I know that Brown missed a little bit of time. Obviously, the Bills, we had Logan Thomas here for a little while trying to see if he could develop. You're very welcome. I certainly wouldn't mind having him back. How is it coming together in the way that you expected? And is Heineke going to continue to be able to utilize them where those talents are and what the deep speed that's available in that group?
Yeah, we haven't had a good running back core since like Deshaun Jackson, Pierre Garçon days when RG3 was slinging it back in like 2012. So it's been a while. Like we've been waiting. And going into this season, it's been like dang, we're actually having to get rid of some guys that we thought are good. And like it's a good problem to have. So like you said, obviously Terry McLaurin, just pray that he stays long term. Just get this quarterback situation figured out and have a happy Terry and have him here as long as possible. He is as good as advertised. For me, he can do everything, the deep ball, catching in traffic, slants, getting separation. Everything he does is beautiful. I love Terry McLaurin. De'Ami Brown was one of my draft crushes. Watching him at North Carolina, he was one of my favorite guys. And as soon as we got him in the third round, I was like, that's the steal of the draft for me. And I'm still waiting for him to come out. He seems like he's just like a deep threat guy, but I think he's more than that. I think he can do more underneath. So I think they're trying to ease him in, even though he had a ton of snaps week one. But then Cam Sims is like the one guy who's always left out. Obviously, big Alabama fans, you can tell behind me, Cam Sims is like that guy that never had his moment at Alabama, getting beaten out by, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, all these big name guys, and then had a great year last year. And everyone's like, hold on, like maybe this guy's finally catching his moment. He's not just like a training camp body, making some yaks, catching the ball with his big body. And like, if you watch the Steelers game, that was probably his best game of his career. So I want more of that. But like you said, just each guy has their own role. And then you add a guy like Adam Humphries, who's a vet. We thought it was going to be like Fitzpatrick's safety blanket. And then Heineke starts throwing to him last week. And he's like, hey, I actually like this guy. Like, he's a good little vet presence. He's picking up key third downs and stuff like that. So it's a new feeling. I still think we're trying to figure out, De'Ami Brown and like what we want him to do. But I think you're going to see a good bit of Adam Humphries against Buffalo. And then Ron said he wants more Cam Sims on the field. So I think his role steps up. He's only had like 12 or 13 snaps so far this season.
Well, and that's a name a lot of Bills fans aren't familiar with, but if there's anything that can cause a concern for the Bills secondary, it's those big physical presences, isolated huge against Levi Wallace, isolated against Taron Johnson, even isolated with Trey White. Trey White's obviously a phenomenal technician, but he's not a huge, crazy athlete. Even Chase Claypool got a nice catch on him. So interested to see where it goes. Aaron, what do you see on the defensive side?
Yeah, actually, so I know everybody wants to talk about the defensive front. We'll get there. I'm going to work my way towards the front because the big names are there. But I'm most interested to talk to you here about this back end because there's some exciting things, I think, and new additions to this back end that I want to talk to you about. But one thing I really specifically want to get your opinion on. So I'm a big Landon Collins fan, always have been. I love his style of game. Much more of a box guy, though. He's going to be down in the box playing a little bit more. With that, the other safety position, there's an interesting mix right now going on in Washington. When you brought in Bobby McCain, I thought McCain would run away with that position, but it hasn't been that way. They're sort of working McCain in with Cameron Curl. What is going on with the snap counts there? What should Bills fans expect to see? We obviously know Bobby McCain pretty well here for a few years while Josh Allen's been beating up on Miami. McCain's been part of that. But his snap count's down right now. He's sort of working his way in. Why is that, and what should we expect to see this weekend?
I think Del Rio's still trying to figure out everything. And some people, like one thing that I agree with is like sometimes you just have too many shiny toys. You want to play with them all. Like, you have, all these great corners.
Greg does it all the time. Yeah.
It's a good problem to have, but you want to mix things up. And that's something we've talked about on my show recently is I want to see more. I want to see more, schemes. I want to see more disguises. I feel like, we're running like the same 2-3 different looks. But Bobby McCain's been great. Like against the Chargers, he was one of our best tacklers that game. And then he got banged up, went to the locker room real quick. Cam Curl, his snap count's going up a little bit. That's something fans are barking at. Like, where is Cam Curl? He had such a great season. Landon Collins comes back. They're like, no, he took his spot. Like, we don't want that. But I think you can still use all three guys. Yeah. Like Bobby McCain even plays some corner too. Like you can mix up different looks. So I think we'll see more Cam Curl. I want to see more blitzes. We saw it a lot in the preseason. I want to see more Landon Collins, in the box. I want to see more Cam Curl up front, in like this Buffalo role, and even him like dropping back into coverage and confusing Josh Allen. Like keep Buffalo guessing. But don't be surprised if, Bobby McCain's out there more than Cam Curl, but he's played great. There's no complaints. Bobby's a small dude. I was so surprised at how small he was in person. I was like, wow. But he'll lay the hammer on you, and he's been a sure tackler for us so far.
And now you guys added William Jackson III, somebody that Bills fans were clamoring for to put across from Trey. I think one of the better cornerback ones probably in league that doesn't get talked enough about as a real cornerback one in this league. Kendall Fuller, another consistent vet on the outside, and then a guy I liked in the draft, Brandon St. Juste. Talk to huge athlete. And so talk to Bills fans a little bit though, because I think when you look at a depth chart and you see William Jackson, Kendall Fuller, and St. Juste, they automatically think he comes in as the nickel role, but that's not really what Washington's doing. Kendall Fuller starts to kick into the nickel when they're getting spread out a little bit, and then St. Juste is out on the outside with that speed and length. The Bills wide receivers, the Bills against the Steelers chose against a really good pass rush to, hey, we're going to spread it out instead of keeping guys in. I don't know that it didn't work very well against the Steelers, but what is the Redskins' plan of attack outside of those three guys, even if the Bills do decide to spread it out? What kind of look should we expect to see from Washington?
That's one already for Redskins.
It's right. It happened.
I'm the worst.
Baldy did it today, too. So, like,
I did it with the Raiders last year. So they kept saying Oakland.
Yeah. No, it's fine. I still do it sometimes. It's a bad habit. But, yeah, we had this open practice. It was like Friday Night Lights, and I saw a good bit of our defense. And I was at the Senior Bowl. I covered it for media. So that's why I instantly fell in love with St. Juste. But I said, don't be surprised, like week one, if St. Juste is out there playing with Mike Williams, these big body receivers. And Washington fans will say he played terrible. He played phenomenal against the Chargers. Justin Herbert is just that good at putting the ball exactly where it has to be. Like if St. Juste covers it any better, then it's a flag every single time. But he's been phenomenal. So you're right. In the nickel, Kendall Fuller goes into the in the nickel role like he did at Kansas City, like he did here before. And then you have St. Juice and William Jackson III on the outside. And I've loved that so far. The thing that's killing us is our linebacker core, which is where
Cole Beasley, about it, because that's where I'm going next.
Yeah, Cole Beasley can feast us up. So I think, Kendall Fuller, he's had a pretty bad start. So I'm praying it's not Kendall Fuller and Stephon Diggs like all game long. Like I want William Jackson III all over Stephon Diggs. But I'm looking at Cole Beasley because going back to Dallas, that dude has eaten us up for many years, and I've hated him ever since he's been here. So our linebacker core can be like the big liability. That's been the biggest problem so far. Our zone just getting eaten up. I mean, against the Chargers, it wasn't like 50-yard bombs. It was just like 10, 15, 10, 15, just driving down the field as fast as possible.
And that's where I think when I look at this matchup, I think attack the middle of the field, right? You guys are so far this year, Washington football team, not the other name, is playing primarily in zone schemes. And I actually think that's affecting some of the play of the cornerbacks. We saw that last year in Buffalo when Matt Milano went down. Everyone's saying, oh, Taron Johnson stinks. These guys stink. A lot of that communication, right, between corners and the middle linebackers happens in zone coverage. So, but I think, with Cole Holcomb, John Bostic, and Jamin Davis, this is an area to exploit with Dawson Knox, with Emmanuel Sanders, who was really brought in to expose zone coverages. And then obviously Cole Beasley, that's been his bread and butter here this whole time. Talk about how maybe Washington can hide this middle and if any changes upcoming that, because we haven't seen them be able to really hide it here in the first 2 games. Small sample size. Do you think they're going to be able to hide that, or is that just going to continue to be a weakness in the middle of the defense going forward?
Even a question here from Charles about Jamin Davis getting less snaps than Bostic and Holcomb.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Jamin Davis. He's still so fresh. I mean, he only got that one season at Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And I tell people all the time, middle linebacker is the hardest position on defense.
Yeah,
he's the play caller. He's directing traffic. He's making adjustments. Pre-snap. He's got seconds to read the play. Let everybody know. I mean, you're blitzing, pass coverage, run stop. You're doing everything. He's a great athlete. It's going to take time. I think Ron put out a number like he wants like 5,000 snaps before he's like a consistent guy, which is a lot. Like if you think about it, but Ron, he's a former linebacker. He knows what he's.
I was going to say, and he coached linebackers in Philly, so.
Him and Del Rio, both former linebackers, so I'm not going to question anything they say. But I think we'll see more Jamin Davis as the season progresses because John Bostic, great vet, but he can be a liability. Like if you saw that play against the Chargers, like like I forgot what account it is, but they show like the little dots moving against the play.
Yeah,
it was a zone play. It's 3rd and 16, and Keenan Allen across the middle. It looked like Bostic was like running to the locker room. I don't know where he was going, but he just had to stay in his zone. And boom, Keenan Allen, like easy catch across the middle. It's just plays like that, or running past guys in the run stop, being too aggressive and just running right past the running back. And he's like, oh shoot, that was that was my chance. Just plays like that are bonehead plays. So that's why I want more Jamin Davis. But I think it's just going to take some time. Yep. People over here in Washington already calling him a bust and stuff like that.
I don't worry about those people.
I don't interact with those guys on Twitter.
Yeah, if you saw any of the Bills game last week where AJ Epinesa had 9 pressures, he was healthy and active early last year, and everybody was sure he was a bust and a terrible pick. So just give it time.
Yeah, don't worry about that. What's surprising to me though about the linebacker play is the front in front of the linebackers is up with the best in the league. There's not a lot of fronts that compare. It's right up there with the Steelers, who we just played and didn't do a very good job. I have lots of concerns. It's been keeping me up at night, both on the interior pass rush and on the edge. Obviously, you got great assets out on the edge that everybody knows, and Chase Young, Montez Sweat, who Greg was a big fan of Montez Sweat in that draft.
I'm already
get him at 22.
I'm already preemptively mad about having to watch him be so good.
Beat up on Darrell Williams for an afternoon. Yeah,
his arms are ridiculous.
Well, and the crazy part that makes me crazy is I think he's better than Chase Young. Like I think he's the best defensive end. That. Like Chase Young is the biggest name. He has the bigger flash plays. Montez Sweat is good every single play. Like he's good every single play, and it makes me mad.
One thing he does that Chase Young does not do, this is not a knock. If any Washington fans watch this, Montez Sweat is not afraid to get his hand up and tip passes. Like we beat the Steelers because Montez Sweat tipped that one pass to Bostic at the end of the game. Like his arm length is like illegal. It's like the LeBron James in football. Like you see him in person, like how is that even like real? Like his hands are like to his ankles. Like no wonder he's like getting all these tip passes. So yeah, he's phenomenal. But but Jonathan Allen's our best D lineman.
Yeah,
and
he's awesome.
I think that needs to be talked about more. Jonathan Allen, the way he gets off blocks, Deron Payne too. My little Bama wall, like I'll go ahead and give them props because they get off blocks so well. And even like Saquon Barkley running towards Jonathan Allen, he's just sticking out one arm and just grabbing him and just stopping him in his track. And then boom, everyone else comes and helps him out. But for me, that's what makes me nervous. Like we can get this pressure in the inside. That's fine. But if Josh Allen runs to the outside, he's not going to sit there and look to pass ball. He's going to run like Daniel Jones did. And Daniel Jones busted that one long one against us. So if we don't have that outside edge pressure and like funneling Josh Allen to Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen, then it's going to be a long day for our D-line.
And now my final question, since you got the Alabama home, I've been labeled as a Levi Wallace fan.
Love Levi.
You love Levi, all right.
Yeah,
that's what I
walk
wanted to hear.
on, turn like star Alabama. Absolutely love Levi.
I wanted to hear it.
I watch him all the time. My buddy at work's a huge Buffalo Bills fan, and I'm like, yeah, I love Levi. That interception last
Nobody
week,
here loves him but me, but I love him.
No,
respect
seriously.
Levi. Y'all need to start liking him more. He's a good story. Came from nothing, walk on Alabama.
That's what I'm
turned like a
saying.
star.
Undrafted free agent,
That's the
starting
process
cornerback
right there.
too.
He's our
Let's talk
Jared
about it.
Patterson.
Yeah, there you go. So, obviously, appreciate you giving us a little bit of time here before we get you out of here. We got to get a prediction. What do you think we're going to see this weekend? And then let the folks know where they can find your work.
So I just did our episode, and I told everyone, I was like, this just isn't a game to where I feel like we can just go in Buffalo and win. Like Ron said, this is a measuring stick game, and I agree with him. But if there's a guy who can do the impossible, it's Taylor Heineke. Like I said, there's just something about the guy. It's like Tim Tebow going to Pittsburgh and throwing 360 yards against them, and just great guy. Like he just has something special. But I think we lose this one 27-24. I think it's a great battle. For me, I think our defense looks better this game, but still struggle against a quarterback like Josh Allen. I don't think we're in that realm yet with our linebacker core to blitz. We need to blitz more. We've only blitzed. I think the most linebacker that's blitz is Cole Holcomb, and he's not a blitzing linebacker at all. He's like your typical Sam run stop guy. He's blitzed like 6% of the time. So like that's something we don't do often. So you will not see many linebacker blitzes at all. So don't expect that. But I think this is a close one. Like I said, 27-24. I think this it's close until the end. I think Josh Allen runs away with it. But you can find me on Twitter at Josh Taylor WFT, as you can see at the bottom there. I do a college football podcast with Believe too called CFB Unfiltered, so check it out. Always talking college ball, draft guys, Alabama, anything like that.
Awesome.
Are you struggling with the WFT and WTFs? Because I am.
I have
every time I see it.
Times
My brain just works that way.
There's actually a GIF if you type in like Washington football. Like every time there's a bad play, it like switches the F and the T. So nice. I'm sure we'll have plenty of them Sunday.
Yeah.
So appreciate it, man. You were awesome today. Appreciate it. We'll tag in the shows as they come out and check out everything else we have going on. Make sure you guys check out Josh. Appreciate his time tonight. We'll talk to you later, man.
Thanks for coming on, man.
So, obviously it's great to have, somebody like Josh jump on when we're going through here, and for teams that we don't normally go through, it's not always the same names. A lot of the, we always have Mark on when it comes to the Patriots games. We always have Tom on for the Dolphins games, and it's fun to be able to reach out to some new folks on Twitter. So I just gotten to know Josh as we were kind of getting ready for this game. So it was certainly intrigued by it, and I don't think he's wrong. Like I'm kind of in the same headspace here. There is a weird energy with Taylor Heineke. Like he's not special. He's not big. He doesn't have a cannon, but he seems to have like just some it factor to him that the team seems to rally around. So I hope the team doesn't take this lightly, because they do have the weapons to be a threat here. Like they do have the talent, Logan Thomas, De'Ami Brown, Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson, they have some weapons here that make me a little bit nervous. Obviously, what you talked about on the defensive side, you don't need to look any further than that Pittsburgh game. If we see, guys like Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen take it over like Cam Hayward did, that can cause a problem. And this game is going to be as much of a test for Brian Dable as it is for Josh Allen. I want to see, okay, you saw what a fantastic front did. If he comes out in that 5 wide receiver empty set again against this defensive front, I'm going to lose my mind. I'm going to go crazy. Stay in 11 personnel, use Dawson Knox to help block, keep a running back in there to help, and then send him out afterwards and let the receivers eat up this zone. I'm going to be frustrated if we see the same things we did in Pittsburgh that obviously just put the offensive line out an island too much.
I'm not going to be frustrated if it works.
Sure.
But yeah, this game is an interesting one to me. So Heineke, I like him. I like the story. I love that he gave the Bucks every
freaking Old Dominion.
Absolutely, yeah, athletic guy. I think he's probably more like Ryan Fitzpatrick than he is going to be some diamond in the rough.
The fun moments are more memorable than the inconsistent throws.
Yes, and the team's going to love him.
What should have been and what was, realistically a backbreaking game-losing interception last week, and they just happened to be able to bail out of it.
Absolutely, and here's the thing. I think I look at this team. I think they have probably Terry McLaurin is a higher-end receiver than I think anyone on the Dolphins is, but I think Bills defense versus this offense, I think it actually seems a lot very similar to what we just saw a week ago in the Dolphins. And I think that if you can pressure Heineke, the stats drop dramatically for him. And I think that the Bills right now, even in week one, generated a good amount of pressures. I think this pass rush and what they're doing on defense and what Leslie Frazier brought to the table with some interesting blitzes and interesting looks in that game. I think that I didn't even read this, but to say long-time listener first. I was shaking my head because of Aaron. Hey,
I was super impressed with you keeping a straight face while you were doing that. Until I
Bald is beautiful, baby. I keep trying to tell Greg. Everybody in the DMs, the Rock Power Report is always trying to make fun of my hair. Bald's beautiful. Own it. If you're losing a little, just shave it, man. It's beautiful. Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's awesome, Anthony. That's very, very kind of you.
It's going to go towards shaving cream and razors. Just
there you go.
But yeah, no, I think pressuring Heineke, some of the interesting stuff that Leslie Frazier was able to do against the Dolphins, same type of stuff. I think Heineke is probably also similar to a Jacoby Brissett type of a player where it has that athletic potential, has all the things that you want and see in a quarterback. But if you can get some pressure on him and make him think, make him hold the ball a second longer, I think he could have a day similar. Probably not to what we saw in Miami. I think he'll move the ball more than that. But I think you can really slow him down if you get pressure on him, get some hits on this guy. I think he has the opportunity here with Fitz out to maybe solidify a role with the Washington football team here going forward.
I think he could take the job and not give it back to Fitz.
For sure. But he's not a guy that I feel like is going to come in to the Bills Stadium and especially with the way this defense is playing. I think that's where my confidence lies. Maybe early last year where the defense was struggling a lot more. But, we haven't talked about numbers yet. Let's talk about a little bit of numbers here. Defensive DVOA. Obviously, DVOA is not quite adjusted out yet with just 2 games. Really no data sets have adjusted out here with 2 games, but they do something called Dave, which is their DVOA adjusted for volatility with early expectations. So they take the preseason expectations of a team with the existing current DVOA, come up with some nerdy math equation to give you more.
It goes as a proportion until you get to 5-6 games into the year, then it fully takes over as just DVOA.
I think it might be after the 3rd week. I think once you have a month of football, I'm not sure. I'll have to check Football Outsiders. But anyways, right now, overall, they have Buffalo as the 6th in Dave, and Washington football is 17th, which I think is fair. And so, again, a good team. Nobody should be sleeping on them. In terms of offense, right now in Dave, even as bad as Buffalo's been, they're 14th. Washington is 23rd, so not good. They don't have them listed as a good offense, even with all the weapons that we've talked about. On the defensive side of the ball, they have Buffalo listed right now, and Dave is the 1st defense in the league, number 1 rated defense in the league. And Washington football, who you would think would be up there, even with the preseason expectations, right now are listed as the 11th. And the interesting thing to me is when you look at Buffalo's offensive rating in the run, they're rated right now 8th. And Washington football is rated 21st against the run. So you listen to all these pass rushers, stuff like that. One thing that stood out to me was how they were able, the last couple of games, able to expose the edges of the Washington football team because they're so aggressive on the edge.
Runs.
And so I think you're going to be able to get some explosive runs, keep the chains moving against this team. I really like this matchup for the Bills. I just do. I think they are still the better team. Obviously, you can't take this team lightly. They have enough play. Chase Young can wreck a game just the way TJ Watt did. Montez Sweat can wreck a game. Jonathan Allen can. I'm not interested in seeing John Feliciano line up against Jonathan Allen. I don't think that's a good matchup for the Bills. But if Brian Daboll plays this smart, I think he will. I think he'll bring in a Dawson Knox. I said it on Twitter. I think Dawson Knox should be a primary playmaker in this game. Use him to chip, use him to get in those seams, stretch those linebackers. I like him against Landon Collins, stuff like that. Work the middle of the field. Get Josh the easy stuff in the middle. Sit Emmanuel Sanders in some zones. Find the spots, find the soft spots. Work with what your receivers do best. I still have it. I'll give my prediction here right now where we're going. Yeah. I have it. Bills 27, Washington Football 20. But again, I keep saying it every time. I think that 20 comes from late score. Heineke rallies the team late and they get a late score, but I don't know that it's necessarily a close game at that point. That's more towards the end of the game. It makes it appear closer than it is, but I think that they cover the spread. What's the spread? 9.5?
Yeah, it's been moving, and it started out at before the year it was 4.5, and then it's gone up. It started out at 7.5, 8, then it's gone up 8.5, 9. I've seen 9.5 a couple places.
I feel like that's a little high.
Ton of money coming in on Buffalo.
That's a little high for me. I think they keep it within a score. I really do.
So I'm not far off of that, and I think a piece of it is simply because I do think that Heineke's going to make some mistakes and give the ball up a time or two. And I think that exactly what Josh talked about. I don't know. I think that the Bills receivers are going to be able to find spots in the zone over and over and over again. And I do think that they're going to be there. I actually think Keith isn't far off from where my head is. I had it 27-13. And that I think it's going to be, if there's another score out of Washington and they get a backdoor cover and it ends up 27-20, I won't be shocked. If De'Ami Brown or Terry McLaurin get loose for a ball late in some garbage time, I won't be surprised. But that's really where my head is at, is that I think it's going to be a huge game for the confidence of Josh Allen. I think there's going to be a ton of those little disciplined, patient completions over and over and over again, finding Sanders, finding Diggs, finding Beasley, finding Knox in some spots in the zone, moving the ball down the field, and being comfortable and patient taking a profit. You don't need to force the ball downfield. I think they've been reinforcing that. We don't want to test their cornerbacks down the field. We want to find the soft spots in the zone and dare them to move into a dime look, move into these looks, and then run the ball. And the same thing, if we stay disciplined to stay in 11 personnel and we kill them with this, little zone beaters over and over and over again, it's why we, like you said it perfectly, it's why we added Emmanuel Sanders. So that Cole Beasley wasn't the only zone beater on the team. And then we get them frustrated where they shift into a 5 and 6 DB look. Then you run the ball out of those same looks because we still have the same personnel on the field. I think this could be a really big game for Brian Daboll to show the confidence in what they do. So we'll see where things come from there. But I agree, and I have it 27-13. I think Buffalo's going to be in a good spot to be able to do it. And I think that I do pick them to cover the spread, and I do think it could stay under. I know in the chat here they were asking
what is the over-under?
What the over-under is, 44.5, 45.5, depending on what book you're at. So not one of the highest ones. They are looking at the Bills defense, how well it's played the last couple, and where the Washington's expectation for defense is. I see it at 45.5 right now.
That reminds me, I got to do my tally site picks here
reminder
this week before the Thursday game. One thing I think fans hate, I love, that I want to see out of this game too. We saw it last week with Daniel Jones over and over again. It was the most explosive plays that New York was able to get as some of the QB designed runs.
Yep.
The aggressiveness and the interior pressure really matches up well for it. The lack of athleticism at linebacker makes it even more desirable, especially in the red zone. Josh is a weapon. I know fans don't want to see him running. The data suggests that running isn't necessarily less safe than getting hit in the pocket anyway. And he is a weapon. So I do believe that Brian Dable is seeing that and looking at his play sheet of design runs that he already has and uses for Josh Allen. And I think that they're going to use them to some success. They're on film. So at least even if they don't use them, I think they'll use them in a trickery way of disguising some of those same looks to get some stuff open on the edges.
It's crazy not to. I mean, anyone who watched Thursday Night Football last week and saw what Daniel Jones did, it was lapses in the defense. It was, closing down way too hard on read options and him just keeping the ball and running around to wide open gaps. Obviously, Washington's watching that film as well. They're going to try to be more disciplined, but they can also overcompensate, and now that's easier running lanes for Devin Singletary or Zach Moss to give on the read option, let him go, and then have them step out to be able to be worried about Josh. But I agree. I think that's there, and J.O. here mentioning it's going to be critical. They're going to be hammering that home. Josh just fumbled already this year. Singletary's fumbled. Zach Moss has fumbled. The ball has gone on the carpet way too many times. We've been pretty
Singletary's
fortunate.
lucked out.
Oh, yeah, we've been pretty fortunate. Yeah, Singletary has 3 with 0 being turnovers.
Yeah.
That kind of luck is not going to continue forever. We're going to lose the ball at some point here. So I'm sure they've been hammering that home. So we'll see where it goes. And I do think that we see a probably not the most exciting, explosive game from Josh, but I think we see a reassuring game from a completion percentage, from an overall offensive output. I think he has a lot of nice, short, clean, complete passes, and I think that'll be a nice reassuring day for fans as well. I expect it to be a good, strong game from him, especially against a good defense.
Yeah, and the biggest thing I'm going to be watching for, and it's hard to watch live, is I think the criticism came off of the offensive line a little bit last week after a better performance. Now, we liked the front 4 of Miami fine. Sure. I think they're fine. They got some players that I think people sleep on, but they're not a fantastic front 4. I'm much more concerned now to see was that just playing down or playing up to lesser talent, and now we're going to see similar to what we saw against Pittsburgh just a couple weeks ago, or is this offensive line actually improved and is playing better? We saw John Feliciano tweet out some big talk. Oh, you throw dirt on my name and it makes me grow, and it's like, okay, now you're playing against Jonathan Allen. Let's see. Yeah, now it's time to back that up, and I want to see.
And you don't get a break when Allen's out of the game because it's Daron Payne.
Yes,
and then when it's not him, it's Tim Settle.
Right. Yeah. No, they have a heavy rotation. There's good depth, and they're going to create pressure. So this is a real measuring stick for this offensive line. I don't expect them to win every matchup. Josh is going to get pressured. I think there are going to be times that make you cringe where they line up wide and try to beat you with what they think they do best. And there's going to be some pressures, but don't lose with the consistency that you lost in that Pittsburgh game. Yeah. Win some more. Josh, that's what I'm going to be looking at this line, because it gets a little easier against the Texans here, but then you have some stretches coming up in this season, and obviously when you enter into the playoffs where you're playing good interior defenses and really good edge pass rushers, and if this line is the problem, I'll tell you what, the Bills are not going to get as far as we think they are, because you do win in the trenches, especially in the playoffs. So this is a real early measuring stick. After a beatdown that they took against the Steelers, I want to see how they recover against a better team than Miami.
Yeah. Well, and it's not just those guys you mentioned. Charles here in the comments mentioning it. It's for the top end guys as well. This is a big test for Darrell Williams. This is a big test for Deion.
Yeah, I didn't like the way people said he looked good last week. I don't agree.
I thought it was okay. I thought it was okay. He certainly had plenty of lapses, and now you do not get a moment off with Montez Sweat, and with Chase Young, you're getting all of that athletic upside and flash. This is going to be a huge test for Deion Dawkins and Darrell Williams, and it's going to be interesting to see how they respond. Both of them. Darrell Williams is still better last week than he was against Pittsburgh.
Sure.
Deion Dawkins was much, much better. Dawkins was really good last week. Mitch Morris was much, much better against Miami than he was against Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
They have to play well. We know that the guards are going to be okay. Our best case scenario is they're okay against Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne. They are not going to dominate Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne. Our best case scenario is
it's not bleeding out.
Yeah, they don't let them take over the game. We need Deion Dawkins, Darrell Williams, and Mitch Morris to have good games to be able to buoy that and to be able to give running lanes for Josh, running lanes for the backs, and time for Josh to get out of the pocket if he missed anything. So
I agree with this too. I think Moss obviously clearly did some nice things last week here too to earn the spot. But Charles G saying best believe Moss is active. Hashtag pass blocking running back. I do think to the point you made earlier of are they going to bring some of the tight ends in? Have a Moss in the backfield to help out. I think some of that stuff will be. Yeah, I think you'll see more of that. We saw Dawson Knox played more snaps a week ago than we've seen him play so far in his career. So I think that trend is probably from that Pittsburgh game, and I think you do see more of that here this week.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. So really excited to see it. Make sure when you guys are listening, we'll put it up in the YouTube comments or wherever you're listening on Twitter. Tell us your predictions. Let us know what you're expecting for the game. As we go through and before we get to our final thoughts, just make sure you're checking out our friends over at TeeShirt University. We showed you the clip for their new exclusive 26 shirt you can pick up at their store, the Walden Galleria. Our friends over at Uncle Jumbos, make sure you're checking them out. All kinds of new stuff, really exciting things coming for them later on in the fall. And download the Underdog Fantasy app. Use promo code Cover1. Get yourself $10 free. Any final thoughts for the people, Aaron? What are you really zoning in on? What are you cooking this weekend?
I think I'm going to do meatballs and some cheese bread, a little Italian spread, maybe.
It's going to be like a high of 56 tomorrow, and it's making me go to the store and get the stuff to make chili. I haven't done anything along those lines yet. I might need to make a pot of chili. I'm kind of excited for it.
Yeah, there you go. And then my final thoughts are follow all the great creators at Cover One and make sure that you're following all the shows and not just this show. Rob and Kyle are doing their thing. The Hoof guys,
Monday night.
Yeah, the Hoof guys killed it at Tally Site too. So if you want the over unders, go see those guys.
I think Eric was literally number one in the entire network, like
in the whole world,
not us. Like all 800 people, he was the number one
in
against
the universe.
The spread last
he was
week.
the best.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah. And well, you did that last year.
I did that last year for the whole season, but you know.
Anthony, obviously, who is in Italy filling himself with raviolis still, but he will be going on before us on Wednesdays here. Eric
did two. He did two film breakdowns this week.
I do the graphics for him, and he keeps hitting me up in the middle of the day, and he's like, "Hey, I need another one." I'm like, "Dude, you're a man. What are you doing? Just ripping off film room." So make sure you're checking out all the content. If you're over here right now on YouTube, might as well hit that subscribe button and get the notification bell signed up, because whenever we go live, you're going to want to know about it. So just make sure you're supporting all the content creators here at Cover One, because everybody's killing it, man. I probably super annoying on Twitter because I'm retweeting every article and show, and it's just so much content, but it's all good.
Yeah. My man Brian, always with the awesome pictures, and he makes those crazy burgers.
The Mafia burger,
redskin potato fries, pizza pockets, and wings. I like it. I like where it's at. All right, guys, we appreciate it very, very much. It's been an awesome show tonight. We are excited for this weekend. We'll be there for you immediately following the game tomorrow night. Rich and I are going to be doing a lead into Thursday night football, so you'll be able to check it out, any of your fantasy questions that are there. And then Aaron and I will be back here for you on Sunday, ready to do the post-game show immediately following, hopefully, a fun and exciting Bills win against Washington football team. But on behalf of Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Thompson. You have been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.